We stand to our feet for prayer. Eternal Father in heaven, how grateful we are for the opportunity to come together once again and to be fed by your word. We thank you, O God, that we are able to open our ears, our hearts to what your Spirit has to say as we learn not just about special needs, but we learn how to address them in the body of Christ. So God, I pray that our time together transforms not just our thinking, but our culture. In the name of Jesus we pray, amen. You may be seated. In just a little while, Elder Ray Edwards is going to come and give an official welcome. I want to say to all of us, in addition to being grateful for you being here, is that prayerfully this time together would not only be information, but inspiration, that it would also cause us to make intentional adjustments in our culture. When we look in Scripture, we see that Jesus has had an affinity for individuals with special needs. One particular narrative that comes to mind is the man on the mat who was not allowed entrance into the place where Jesus was teaching. And so his 4 friends picked him up on the mat and went up the stairs to the roof to lower him down. That is an example of being intimately acquainted and affected with our responsibility to help others in their time of need. That is also an instance where the Lord shows us the importance of working together as a community so that no one is left behind. And so here at Church of the Oranges, part of our focus goal of reimagining is to reimagine how we can help segments of our community that sometimes aren't given the attention by our church. And so to Sister Stevenson, to Dana, Andrew, all the staff, everybody who's working so hard, all the parents who come out to support, we thank you for helping us, teach us, help us to learn and to grow so that we can better serve you. Amen? Amen. Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone. You guys look well fed and sleepy. Wake up. You know, it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable. Imagine that phrase applying to society, or imagine that phrase or that statement applying to a church, right? Should be much more applied to a church than to society at large. The information that we have today is to share with us how we can reach out, incorporate, and value those among us who may be the most vulnerable, right? These are tools for us. We welcome you here. Your presence speaks volumes of your commitment. Your presence speaks volume of your willingness to change what has been so that we can create and plan a better future. I want to thank the participants who will be here. I want to thank you for being here, but I pray that this will not be a one-off, right? That the information that we have will be used in our daily lives, and not just for those with autism or special needs, but just society in general, the vulnerable among us, the least of these, that we will be more in tune to the needs of those around us. And that could be emotionally, spiritually, physically, all those who have needs, that we will see them as part of our family, part of the brotherhood of believers and that we will treat them as we would like to be treated. I want to invite the participants to come and take their place, and I pray that as we go forward this evening, that you will have a fundamental change in your understanding of our fellow neighbors or fellow family members. And maybe for some of us, maybe we will understand something about our own behaviors also. Right? I want to thank you, and I pray that God will be with us as we together go on this journey. Thank you.
All one, please. Bravo. Okay. We are here because this event was planned by the special needs group. We call ourselves the special messengers. We are 16 members strong at this time. We are open for new members, and these are the members that are in the special needs group right now. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll now introduce the panelists that are on the platform at this time, not in any particular order, special. First up, we have Sister. We have Claudette Walker, specializes in pediatrics and nurse education consultant. She has been serving in her profession for over 30 years. Let's give her a hand. Next slide, please. We have Evelyn Ambrose Etienne. Oh my God, all right. Ms. Ambrose Etienne is a school psychologist, as a preschool manager, is managing students. She's currently case manager for preschool students and administers assessment. And she works in coordination in collaboration with the child study team to provide support to teachers. We can give your hand to the crowd and let's go on. Thank you. Next up, we have Sister Gabrielle Jacob. She's not able to be here because of emergency. Was called because of a family member not doing very good. So let's keep her in our prayers. She promises that next time we have a panel discussion, she will certainly be available. Next, please. We have Abigail. Fulton, right? I didn't want to spoil your name, and she is a behavioral analyst. Just wave your hand, let's give her. Next up, we have Betsy C. Hutchinson, who is a speech language pathologist. Wave your hand for the crowd. Next slide. Okay, that's it. That's it. That's it. All please. Okay, so sister, we have here Sister Crystal Grant, who are so graciously said yes, because when we mentioned that two of our members happened to have an emergency and couldn't be here, she willingly said she will come and stand in the gap. So let's give Crystal Grant, who's a developmental intervention specialist, a round of applause, and thank you for so willing. And I have the great pleasure of introducing our moderator, Sister Dana Dennis. We met about 3 years ago online, or through our virtual Sabbath school. I met her son and our family, and we have been inseparable since then, right? Professionally, she's an advocate for social justice, working as a senior organizer in New York City, and she's now pairing that with her past experience as an Adventist youth leader and her recent role as mom to 2 toddler boys, the oldest has special needs. And it has been our newfound journey to fight for more inclusion, for inclusive spaces that will welcome all of God's people, regardless of their disability. So let's give a round of applause for her.
Good evening, everyone. I know how it is when we get itis, but I hope you all will stay with us, and we will do our best to get through these questions. We're trying to bring in our responses because in addition to what we want to discuss today, we want to hear from you all. So get your questions ready, get your pens out, or start, doing your eye notes or whatever you do to be ready at the end. Because we're going to be calling on you all to, bring up any concerns that you may have. So let's get going. With that, I'm going to just call on everyone briefly. This is just a slight intro of telling you what your work is or how you work with folks in the autistic community. And so I'll just call you one by one. Couple of workers. I'll start with I'm looking at the short term treatment you provide for folks who have autism in your role as a recipient.
Okay, first let me make sure it's on. Thank you. Okay, so I am a BCB, I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I'm also a special educator. In my work as a behavior analyst, I am working currently in schools. So I'm instructing special needs class, and I use a lot of the science and behavior analysis to help my students. Most people, when familiar with BCBA, and that for letters A and D, and letters B and A and C over and over and over. So if you have a child who's diagnosed with autism, you're likely being recommended to go to ATA therapy. And BCBA is the person that organizes that therapy, talks to you about what your child's needs are, comes up with the treatment plan, trains the therapist in what to do that they're going to use to help your child. And that person, providing ATA therapy, also provides caregiver training. So teaching the caregivers how to use the scientific behavior analysis. And that for me has always been part and parcel to my training the staff or training the caregivers. That I continue to do recently outside of the school. I'm working in acuity. So I'm working with the adult population who's an HL. Just here.
Thank you. All right, so just bring along to Sister Margaret. Okay, better. Sorry, okay.
All right, so my name is Donna Walker, but whenever you know me, I'm a certified pediatric nurse for over 30 years. I didn't want to give the exact years because it will definitely show my age. But the role that I play as a nurse, and I can only speak to the pediatric population, is when they get ill. They come to us in the hospital and now we have to take care of them. So the best person to help us with their special needs will be the parents, the caregivers, or family members. And so we do have to plan more care around what normally they do at home, what they like, what they don't like, because many of these children are very sensitive to certain things. And here in the hospital, you know, they don't know any better per se, but we know that we're there to take care of them. And there's certain procedures that will be painful and they're not going to tolerate it. So we do have a special team within the hospital and for the organization that I worked for, that we do have like a child life specialist, we do have speech therapists and other collaborative areas that we will work together in order to take care of these, I have to say, children, you know, and sometimes just by starting an IV can be very traumatic for them and for the parents, and they need this IV, they're not going to sit still for it, and, you know, we kind of have to do what we need to do to get it done. But in the meantime, the pediatric unit is so weird that it has special, we have a room that's called the treatment room. And in this treatment room, we do have different activities just to try to divert their attention. You know, the ceiling is painted with all kind of things that are pretty attractive. And so this is what I do with these type of children.
Hello, everyone. So, as a school psychologist, I work closely with the child study team and IEP team that includes family members, parents, and caregivers. I work closely with the BCA, special education teachers, general education teachers, school social worker, speech and language therapists, early intervention, and my case managed students just to make sure that they're in a proper academic setting. We work together to come up with individualized education programs that best fit each child's academic needs. And that's pretty much currently what I'm doing now as a school psychologist.
So hi everyone, can you hear me? Awesome. So many of you know me as worship leader, but as Sister Gay mentioned, I am a speech language pathologist. I also work closely with the BCBA, the school psychologist, early intervention, OT, PT, just pretty much everyone up here to pretty much just promote communication skills for children with autism. I work primarily with children high school aged, but I do have experience with working with the littles, like preschool and middle school. However, right now, currently I'm placed in the high school. And so again, my primary goal is to facilitate communication, to really help teach my students how to functionally communicate, whether that means to request their basic wants and needs. A lot of my students cannot rely on their natural speech, so I specialize in augmentative, alternative communication. And you may see like on IEPs, or you may have heard the term AAC, but that's pretty much what it stands for, alternative, augmentative communication. And that just basically means that because the child or the client, the adult, cannot rely on their natural voice or their speech skills to communicate, I come in to help provide an external support, so something that they can use to either support their communication or something that they can use to just communicate, period. So whether that's in picture form, sometimes that we call it low tech. So it could be pictures, like a communication book. And then we also use high tech, which a lot of people use iPads, right? But there's AAC software that goes on the iPad to help facilitate communication. And once it gets to my piece, I'll definitely explain that more. But I really, really love what I do, especially in the area of AAC. And I love supporting my students who cannot, again, rely on their natural speech.
Hi, everyone. I am the DI, early intervention. I'm also coming from AV background, so I'm working with the PCBA, of course, my speech therapist, OTs, PTs. We're just a group of individuals who are trying our very best to go in as early as possible for children 0 to the day before their 3rd birthday. I am the person who will be assigned to the child first. Usually the DI goes in first. And then after a period of time, we will make a reference. Okay, maybe, I think this child needs more intervention. Then we'll request for OT, we'll request for speech. There are certain criteria that need to be met for the babies in order to get like speech. So they'll have to be able to attend. They have to be able to, do some type of invitation. I will start by teaching them sign language if they do not have their verbal communication going, functional communication with the family. So not only am I working with the kids, I'm also working with the parents, the caregiver. I go into a daycare, I know where the babies are. We go to camps, we go to homes, diapers, homes, wherever the babies are, that's where we go. And it's been a wonderful journey, just being able to go in as early as possible so that we can assist families, because this is very, very difficult on parents not understanding why is my child not talking yet, why is my child not crawling yet or walking yet, how am I going to communicate with my children. And so it's not just the children that I cater to, but also the individuals that are taking care of these children, because in order for functional communication to take place, both parties have to be able to know what each other, they're saying. So basically, in a gist, that's it. Wherever these babies are, again, we go there. And one thing I always do as soon as I get into the home, because I have been doing ABA for a long time, I already know the signs of autism. Unfortunately, a lot of our parents are in denial. They are very afraid. They don't want the stigma to be attached to their children. I take on the role as a counselor, and breaking down to the families, look, this is what I am seeing. This is what is happening. I would strongly suggest that you go get assessed. At least get it out of the way. If the child is on the spectrum, there is help. You can get ABA therapy, because again, we're only there until the day before their 3rd birthday. And if you don't get that ABA, because in order to get the neurologist assessment, it's like 6 months to a year out in order to get an appointment. And even though I might be going in and you might find that the child starts to improve, once the services stop, the child might relapse. And what I try to do is to get them to start ABA before I actually leave that child. So if there's anyone in here who probably has a child that you are seeing some type of signs or symptoms, please do not be discouraged. Go get the assessment done and get the help that you need. Thank you for that. So, okay, in the interest of time, we're going to go through not every question per person, but I'm going to ask you all some pointed questions. We'll try to keep them to 2 minutes or less, which I know is hard because this is such a great topic. But I'm going to start with you, Abigail. So what are some triggers in a church or crowded setting that may cause behavioral responses in autistic individuals?
Okay. So I'm going to answer this based on my professional experience.
On our panel here, we don't have anybody who's watching, not necessarily parents, geared towards the parent population who have dealt with special needs children in church. If we talk to them, they might say that everybody's experience is very different. So what is triggering for one isn't benefiting the other. For example, the music in the church. I've worked with families whose children can't wait to go. And when they're not at church, they're singing the songs and they're clapping along to the hymns. And they truly experience it, and it's such a joy for them. And then there are other parents who say, the minute a child hears the music starting, they need to exit the service. So, very individually speaking, is that, the noise, the lights, volume, the echoes, all of those sensations play a role. And then there is the fact that a church service can be long, that somebody with special needs, young children, regardless of whether or not they're special needs, can rarely attend for more than a few minutes at a time. So if you get your 1-year-old to do anything for 10 minutes, you have quite a 1-year-old. So to be at church, which can last a long time, and a child with ability comes up with time, and special needs, comes up with time to when it's end, it can be very hard. And take into account that children with autism have a language challenge. So to come to some place where you don't know how long you're going to be there, it might not necessarily be where you want to be. It may be loud, it may be smelling the flowers, and people's perfume, maybe your church clothes. And then you don't understand what they're talking about. It's a really frustrating experience.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered actually the second question. Did not having any occupation therapist here, and I was going to throw this out to everyone. And it was basic. What are sensory issues? For child sensory issues, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? They also have autism, which can have sensory issues without autism. If anyone wants to take that, feel free. But I think you spoke to a lot of the sensory concerns in a church setting.
I can speak to the sensory issue. There are many children who has the need for movement, which can be a problem in church because you're required to sit. But the back and forth rocking, side to side, or you like to tumble, stuff like that, that can also be an issue for children who are on the spectrum. I do believe that a child can have sensory needs and not be on the spectrum.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, so our traditional, this is where I'm coming to traditionally, tablets, smartphones, and toys have been very taboo, right, in church or formal settings. And however, as of late, a lot of our children are seen using these gadgets in a church setting. And how have you seen assistive technology being used in positive ways for autistic children and adults?
So that is a loaded question, and I love talking about assistive technology with my colleagues, but especially parents, because there is a way to functionally use it at home, especially if your child uses it for communication, like they're gonna need it. But to answer your question, in a church setting, even for students who are not on the spectrum, like we all said, church services are super long for our kids. And I grew up Haitian, I am Haitian, and I grew up in a very cultural church where the standard was when you sit next to your parent, you sit down quietly and you don't move. And if you do, you're gonna get a pinch or you're gonna get in trouble, right? That's how I grew up. And even my mom will make comments like that when my kids don't sit. But, to speak to what you said about having sensory needs, a lot of our students, our children, they need to move, right? And so sometimes to alleviate that, you kind of replace their need to move with a device or with a tablet. And so I think assistive technology, again, it helps in just kind of regulating that movement just for a short period of time. So it just honestly just gives their attention to something else, right? So I know with my daughter sometimes, who's not, on the spectrum, but I will, maybe put a Bible coloring app
Or maybe I'll have her use the YouVersion Kids app, right? Where there's all these interactive activities that they can do while in church, while still getting the message that we want them to get, right? Essentially, we want them to have an awareness of God, an awareness of worship, and an awareness of community. And so I think just finding the balance, right, of that, noticing that your child needs a minute. And so maybe you get up and you're actually moving with them in the back. Like I've done that with my son. I'll get up and I'll go to the back and allow him to pace. Or maybe instead of giving my daughter a device, maybe during worship, I know that she needs to get that energy out. So I'm like, get up, it's a fast song, jump up and down. So there's ways that you can kind of find pockets of time in the service to allow your child to move. So again, I'm a worshiper, right? So another example, during the worship service, there's always going to be an opportunity to stand up and to sing. If your child does like music or wants to move, then maybe that's an opportunity for them to get up and to kind of enjoy the music. But again, to go back to technology, I don't poo-poo it at all. I just think that there's a time and a place, and there's ways that you can functionally, incorporate it even during the service so that your child's attention and needs are still met. Hope that answers. Thank you.
Okay, so I am going to shoot down to you. All children are blessed, and parenting any child is demanding work, which many of you parents know out there. In addition to parenting children with special needs, there's a different level of challenges, right? But what are some steps that this church in particular, or any church really, but I'm speaking more so of CODO today, CODO leadership can take to support the parents in the congregation?
Well, my first point is going to be education and awareness, and I think that was an amazing job by this panel here, and I think that's something that we definitely should continue because it helps foster that understanding, develop that empathy and acceptance within the community. And secondly, creating a support group, establish support groups that are specifically for parents with children of disabilities and autism. And these groups can provide a safe space where parents can seek advice, give advice, communicate about their experiences, and just overall create that support. And inclusive programming, I think, is very important. So ensuring that the church programs and activities are accessible and inclusive for children with disabilities and autism. So it can involve sensory-friendly environments. I think you guys touched on a lot of it, but just like overall one-to-one support, where needed. And I think having a buddy system is very important. Implementing a buddy system for caring volunteers to be with the children with disabilities to provide that individualized support during church services, events, and programs. So this way, the child may feel included in the services, and also the parent feels supported and have that peace of mind. I think that's very important, and overall, just celebrating the diversity of all members within the community. Including the ones with disabilities and autism. Just recognizing and affirming their unique gifts. I think everyone has something to contribute to this. Without, God does always something that gives, that we all have to share while we have talent. Things that we can contribute, especially individuals with disabilities. So just overall fostering that environment of inclusion and of belonging. I think those are very important.
Thank you for that. Sister Diana, coming to you. Right? As a nurse, and I know you more so work with your clients and folks who are on the spectrum in a hospital setting, just more like an emergency setting. But just what you observe, say, do you believe that autistic folks grow up to have normal life, complete school, and functioning the job, and family their own one day?
Most definitely. It all depends on what level of the spectrum they fall on and the developmental age. I've seen children on the spectrum where once they become of 18 years old, they get a job at ShopRite and they will take in the cards and, simple things like that, or even become a janitor at a school. So they do function. It all depends on the level. And so with that comes support. And so that's why this team is here. I feel like I do a certain part of this. I only get them, as I said, when they're ill. But you guys really doing an amazing job. And as it was mentioned, early detection for everything is the best. Okay, so once these children get into the intervention, yes, they can learn certain skills, certain tasks that will help them. Because remember, parents are not going to be around forever. And at some point, they have to get or achieve some life skills that will help them to navigate this world, And so, yes, they can live normal lives based on their developmental age and capability.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. This is so as a parent. I will also for speech therapy. So there are autistic children in our congregation who are nonverbal, as we've stated, and if that child is seen without an adult present, what should members do or what can members do to assist? If we run into a child in the hallway and they're nonverbal.
So I think the first thing to do is to, of course, make sure that the child is safe, meaning like, look around, see if there's maybe someone that's familiar with the child around, but I'm gonna assume based on the question, obviously that person is not there. So if that person is not there, I would definitely say to approach very gently. And if there's one thing that I've learned with working with children with special needs is less is more. Meaning that sometimes the language that we use, we're using so many words. And trust me, I know because I talk a lot. We're using so many words. And by the time they're like even trying to process the first word that you're saying, they just break down, right? So less is more in a sense where you see the child, instead of saying, oh my gosh, where's your mommy? Where are they? Oh my gosh. Instead of panicking, just say, hi, come. Right? Hi, come, and in the most gentle way that you can, right? So if you notice what I did, I said hi to show that I'm a friendly face, and then I said come. So I use that gesture because a lot of students, and we always say that gestures are so important. Like we all use gestures when we're communicating, whether it's nonverbal gestures, right? Like you can tell I'm upset when I, furrow my eyebrows, or, you can tell again, we use nonverbal communication. So a lot of times our students, especially with autism, they'll see that. They may not be able to communicate, fear or flight, right? But if you're aggressive, they sense that and they feel that. If you're worried, if you have anxiety, they can still sense and feel that. So again, to go back, approach them very gently, very kind, say hi, come, and then if the child doesn't come and obviously, they're really uncomfortable and maybe they start to engage in like maladaptive behavior, then honestly, I would really just stay in the environment, keep your distance, obviously make sure that they're safe. And then just try to find someone who knows them, or just try to find the parent. Hopefully the parent comes, but if they don't come, then definitely, again, just be as gentle as possible and make sure that they're safe.
Thank you. 2 more questions, folks, and then we're going to come to you all. And I was told I was speaking low, and I apologize for that. Loudspeakers, I think I've been pulling the mic away in an effort to not be too loud, but I'm going to make sure everyone hears me. Okay, good. And this one is listening to bring your therapist that can go to you, but it can also open up to anyone else. It's also part of what you do, Crystal. What would you do, or should anyone do, if an autistic child is seen having an episode, right? And that can be, some folks will label it a meltdown, an outburst. If they're getting a little loud, covering their ears, flapping his or her hands in church.
Okay, so yes, it's definitely the developmental. So Growing up, there was an expression that if you don't cry, your church is dying.
I love that. Say it again.
If you belong to a congregation and you don't hear crying, your church is dying. Our population in New Jersey, what is it? I think the last time I checked, it was like 1 in 69 children with autism. So if you do not hear or see individuals in your congregation with autism, it means that their families did not feel welcome enough to join you. So, when it comes to somebody having a meltdown, and we work with Ms. Etienne, so she can confirm we see these on a regular basis. Safety first, right? So, is the individual harming themselves? Is the individual harming or likely to harm anybody else? If this individual is just trying to mitigate their way through this experience through rocking or flapping or becoming a little bit louder with their vocalizations, hands off, they give their parents a smile so that, because as a parent, that parent is probably just dying inside. And that parent wants the child to stop just as much as anybody else ever could. So give that parent a smile, a nod, it's okay, we're gonna get through this. Please, whenever you can, permit that individual to stay in the service. But if that caregiver indicates that they need to leave, look for ways to help, or ask the parent if there's ways you can help. If that parent is trying to absorb their child out of the service, that child can take a minute to breathe and regroup, hold the door. If the mother is trying to, the father is managing multiple children, and she's got her bag, and the other kid is not saying, I'll sit with these two. You take them out, all drag her, anything like that, that's a long way. And then, what's wrong? Maybe your suggestion?
Oh, definitely. And the question says, it did list some signs. So it all depends on what episode they're having. So if you see a child that is covering their ears, obviously there's a sensitivity to sound. I would say if parents have children with that sensory issue, you can provide earmuffs to kind of, drown out some of the sounds. Or if you have a special place that the child can be away from that sound. Usually when a child is flapping their hands, it's usually a sign of excitement. They get very excited, and it could be anything that is going on that the child just gets really excited and they start flapping. There is no need to be concerned. You just flap with them and they'll be okay. When children are making certain noises that you don't even understand, go ahead and mimic them. It will encourage their speech. But if they're definitely having one of those episodes where they're throwing themselves on the ground, again, safety first, make sure their head is protected. For children who like to throw things, make sure there's nothing in their reach that they can throw, right? I would say leave them, thank God it's carpeted inside. Just allow them to have their moment, and once they're okay, you can, give them a hug, if they're a hugger, because a lot of the children, they do not like to be touched. Sure. So you really need to know what type of child you're dealing with. And for parents, you can help church members to understand your children, because you know better what your child likes. Because if your child doesn't like to be touched, and somebody just comes over and touches your child, we're going to have an episode. So it goes both ways.
And I just wanted to add one thing to that, and also maybe having a designated quiet area where that child can go until they become regulated and is able to service again. I think that's important.
That's an awesome one. Actually, the last one. I'm going to skip one. I'm going to get you some time, so to make sure we have at least 10 to 15 minutes to open it to the congregation. But the last question I will ask, this is open to anyone who wants to take it. What are some ways that CODO, Church of the Arches, can go beyond awareness
and create. So this month we've been talking about awareness, and hopefully we all do feel very aware of, our congregation is amongst us and how we welcome others to come here. But how do we create inclusion, right? Because that's where we really want to go. Folks are truly feeling included in social settings and in everyday lives of the children that are affected by autism in our congregation.
So, yes, Rita. So the families of the children with autism, if you had a link on your website that said, what makes coming to worship difficult for your family, and ask for the feedback and reflect on the feedback, you'll kind of know where to take it.
And I just want to add, with this support group that this church is now establishing, kudos, that's very important and great, because with this type of collaboration, one will be able to educate the congregation at large so that everyone will become aware of what can be done if they see a special situation. Most children with autism, some of them, not all, they do get very, they feel a little bit unsafe in unfamiliar territory. And for me, where I'm coming from is that even in the hospital, it's different from their environment at home. So they're cooped up in a room 24 hours a day. So I'm just going to share this quick experience where we had an autistic young man. He was about, I would say, 15 years old. He was nonverbal, and he came in for whatever diagnosis. And at some point, he became very restless and agitated. And I don't think the parents were in the room at the time. And so what happened? He disappeared. He disappeared. Now, can you imagine the panic the unit was in? A child is missing? That's a no-no. I mean, we searched everywhere for this child. The whole hospital was shut down because we didn't know where he was. And guess where we found him? In the stairwell. No one decided to look in the stairwell. And so when they found him, he was there rocking, because to him that was his comfort zone, So we have to be aware of certain signs. And of course, the church is a great area where we can share and we can educate each other.
Before we close up on this, I'm going to now, I already see a hand, great. You all to get ready with your questions, your comments. There is no question too big or too small. We have the 2 microphones, and if folks can't get up, can we just have maybe 2 volunteers who are willing to bring the mics to folks? Mr. Andrea.
Hello, everyone. Hello, I am so excited to speak to everyone here, because you have to be in this to win it. You have to have your own child. You have to spend time with the child to know what we're talking about. Theories are beautiful. I've heard them for 11 years. But when you're in it, you know. So this comes with sacrifice. You need to sacrifice for your child. You need to give up your time. If we're in this church, we need to spend time with the child that has that disability. We can't go with areas. These children need help. And I can explain one-on-one what my child needs. But if you don't spend time with my child, if I don't spend time with your child, I don't know your child, and you don't know my child. So I have things here that I've written down for those that are alone, for those that don't have the help, who don't have the education, who can't run to these programs that are not going to approve you if you don't have certain criteria. So if you're alone and you don't have the help, there's programs like MTLSS that I can find out until my child is 6 or 7. There's respite that your child may be available for. And they'll give you help, they'll pay someone. There's PPP that can help for your child. You're paying a relative, a stranger that you can train. My child is G2 fed on time and time and time again. I had nightmares in my house. I was told that my child had failure to thrive. And I was doing everything that I could. But my child is G2 and I'm not a doctor. If your child is a G2, let's get an education here from the kids that you see here. What's going on with your kid? How did your kid get that big? How did your kid not die? Because what happens is you don't have an education. You don't know how to do it. The diapers will be at your house, not to help. Not to help, but to accuse about what you're doing wrong. So we're here to find out what's going on with the child. Spend time with the child, and it takes sacrifice. It's gonna take your time, it's gonna take your money, it's gonna take your time, it's gonna take your money. In this church, I have people that I can close my eyes and know that they have sacrificed because I needed an Uber to go home. And those select few people stopped and said, sister, here you go. It's not about the wishing and the wants, it's about the doing. It's about the doing. This person wants to be here. This person wants to worship. But in we're worshiping, we believe in God. We're God right now. We're Jesus. We need to be able to do this. There's a problem when you see a situation and you turn away. Who are we praying to? Who are we representing? Well, I have a few more things I'm almost done. There's doctors. My child is a BP shunt, and so we don't know the terminology to look into them and find out what these things are. A physiatrist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. Let's find out what these therapies are and educate the people in our church. Again, it's good when you have an 8-hour job, but you go home. You go home, 8 hours are done. But what about when it's 24 hours, when you can't get this child back? Well, this is your child, you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. What are you gonna do when you still have to work, you still have to work? It's important to have that type of sensitivity, to understand that this parent needs support. We need to have a safe spot for the parent. This parent could lose their cool at home. This is your church member that's here. Now they're on TV, now they're in jail. Because we didn't help them. Because they have nobody. They've been trying to do their best with their first child or their only child that has special needs. Again, we have to believe that there's a supernatural force in this church. That Jesus is here. And yes, your child may act up, but my child is blind. My child can't walk. My child can't talk. My child has the most severe disability, but God. My child sits in the back 5, 8, 10 hours, whatever it may be. I have to prepare it, and I believe. And the Lord has stood with me. If you bring your child consistently and there's no barrier that's going to stop you from coming here. I didn't care if I had to carry my child on my back upstairs. I didn't care if I had to bring my child on 3 buses. I didn't care if I had to walk to church, and I'm coming. I'm coming. And so when you have that type of determination, God is going to stand with you because I am a living testimony that God will stand with you. You don't need all this augmented stuff. You don't need all this extra stuff. It's good to have it. But the power of God, sacrifice and fasting. You have to believe the unseen. You have to open your Bible because the Lord still exists.
Amen.
And lastly, do not let the disability fool you. These children are still children. Amen. Just because they have a disability does not cater to all these things. Let's look at the child they are. Let's love the child. You will get to know them as you love them. And one last thing I also want to say, the city of Orange is different. The city of Orange is different. I've been in other cities. My child has got families from all other places. But the city of Orange has compassion. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm part of the Church of Orange. The city of Orange is different, and we must represent that.
I just wanted to just really call out that we hear you, sis, and from the parent perspective, that passion that you just gave. And I've personally told you the last year you have been my inspiration of everyone in this congregation, because I've looked to you, I've seen you traveling with your boys. We were both, downstairs with Sister Henry, putting our children in children's choir. Days when I'm like, oh, I don't feel like coming, or I don't know, or Tim was having a meltdown, and it's literally been you who is maybe go, she's doing this, you have to keep doing this. So I just want to say personally,
To add, just like having a new baby at home, the entire home now has to work around the birth of this new baby. Now think of a child on the spectrum is triple the work.
Yeah.
The entire family has to revolve around the life of this child. And so when you think about it, the parents, the mothers, the fathers, they are tired, they are stressed. What we can do as a church community is to rally around the parents. Take them out, give them a treat, just get them away, exactly, respite, so that they can feel that someone cares for them, someone understands what they're going through, not just looking at them from afar off, but we all now need to get involved. Thank you so much for sharing that.
you have another hand.
Yes, happy Sabbath again, everyone. So one of the panel members I think is missing. I am a general ed special educator for over 18 years, and also have a nonprofit organization that provides healing and rehabilitation to students with disabilities through the performing arts. And what we have to understand is we have a God that is love, and that we are children of a loving Most High Father. And in my field, along with my colleagues up here, love is a universal language. And one of the things that bother me a little bit is when we say autistic child. No, there are child with autism, just like I am a woman of color. The disability should not be seen as the forefront. It is a child with a disability. And we make sure we tell that child that you are a child of the Most High, and you have hidden talents that we want to encourage, we want to celebrate, we want to appreciate. That should be in the forefront. Because I tell you the truth, I give you a small testimony. You see how God loves us so much, and He gives us purpose. He gives us purpose. New Jersey decided in the middle of the school year to transfer me from a school setting to a new school setting. And at first I was very upset. And I said, God, what are you doing? Because complacency sometimes causes us to be lax. We become lax. We become so lax to the point that we don't live in our purpose. And I sit here to tell you that love through your body language, love through your facial expression, and love has an energy to it. So when we loved, and we know that love is universal, so when we see any child, no matter if they have autism or they have emotional disturbance, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows when they're experiencing love. And so that's the thing to make sure we do, and like how our parents said, is that it's not about a title, it's not about a service, it's how you love and how you express love. And I tell you, the new kids that I have, for 2 weeks, I only had these kids for 2 weeks. When you're embracing each child as if they're your own child, that's when you really make a difference in their lives. And it doesn't matter how severe a child might be in their disability,
But if they see and they know that you love them and you spend time with them and you nurture those hidden talents and embrace those hidden talents, and not just see a person with autism, but see a child that needs to, they have a disability, but how can I see them past their disability? That's what we need to do, just like in any society that we may be a minority or a majority, that doesn't matter. It's about how can we embrace each child and give them the love they need. For example, this mother here, she says, yes, my child may have this disability, but if I'm hungry, there's someone feed me. If I need to go home, are they helping me? And I tell you the truth, I've worked with kids with the most severe disabilities and kids that were high on the spectrum with Asperger's. And they all just desperate for love, just like how we're desperate for love. So at the end of the day, what we need to make sure we do is hold each other accountable and have that home to school connection. Because I'm a second parent. When the child comes to school, I'm that second parent. And the thing is, what I do in the classroom should transcend what's being done in the home and also carry what goes on in the church. And one of the things I do in my classroom is I have a behavioral chart, because if you notice, it doesn't matter if your child with disability or not. If you give me high expectations, I'm going to rise to it if you believe I can do it. And that goes for anybody. And I tell you, this new setting that I'm in.
I'm gonna actually, sorry, I'm not to cut you too.
Right, I'm gonna wrap up. So I just want to finally say is that doesn't matter who we see, no matter who we service, if we look past their disability and just see their child of God and meet them where they are, that was to be violence for them.
Take maybe 2 more questions or comments, but I know in the interest of time, I'm gonna ask everyone to be very brief, right? So 1 minute or less in whatever your comment is. And that way, if any of the panelists want to answer, if it is a question, we give them time as well. Yes.
Question. For our parents, you spoke earlier about the necessity of having early diagnosis, right? But what are the avenues for parents to receive this diagnosis? Because one thing to talk about is so many children are going undiagnosed, and we see adults who were never diagnosed. So the question is, what are the avenues for diagnosis, and then once diagnosed, how do we provide the services and the advocates for those parents, especially considering socioeconomic background and maybe not having the skill set to navigate a complex healthcare system.
So thank you for that. There may be other parents in the audience who want to answer, but I'll speak specifically from my child's diagnosis. So Samuel has 2 things: Earth's palsy, which means he's paralyzed on his left arm, as I'll told you from the earth trauma that he experienced when he was pulled out. And we started to notice autism around, I would say, 18 months. We focused very heavily on his physical needs. And I went through, many parents can tell you, a series of guilt, right? Which is a very big layer to this. Like, did I miss something? How did I not see this? And so what started showing up for me was around 15 to 18 months, I saw a regressive period of him starting to develop based on what we consider normal milestones, right? Words that you expect him to say, or things that you expect him to do, responding to his needs. That was a big point for me. I started saying to my immediate village, he's not responding when I'm calling him, or he's not making eye contact. And I remember my best friends, my mother, my husband, all of them saying, no, he's fine, he's just a toddler. And I'm like, no, something's different. And so by the time we hit 2, the blessing for us was because of his physical disabilities, we already had early intervention. I left the hospital with him in the NICU, and we immediately had early. And what is early intervention? You're welcome to probably speak to it better, but I didn't know what early intervention was. What happened was, in the NICU, I immediately got a referral to the social worker department, and they called the state. So every state, I believe at this time, hopefully every state should have an early intervention team. And a lot of times it is free. Sometimes they may ask you what you make. I thought we were going to be charged. Thankfully, we were never charged. And so Samuel received
3 forms, and right before he turned 3, I took 4 forms of therapy every single week as they came to my house. So that was also a blessing. He was not in daycare, I was working from home. And so he was able to get those therapies in home. Because of the pandemic, a lot of parents will tell you, all of us who have like children who are 5 and under, it has been very difficult. Because what happened was he had 1 session in person, and then everything switched to virtual until he was 3. And that, I also believe, beyond the autism, played into a factor. But that's another story. But, if I'm talking to you through a laptop, it's much harder for you to, pick up that speech. So that was another issue. But yes, if you are, any of you are seeing signs, your child, your neighbor, your grandparents, and we never want to like push a diagnosis on someone. Let me tell you that. Because I'm always in social settings where I see children that may displace and stuff. I don't tell anybody anything about their child because we don't know how people are going to receive that, right? So I just talk about my child and I hope that people pick up. That's what I'm saying. But if you are close enough where you feel like you can ask that parent or suggest something to that parent, I would say, again, the assessment, and the assessment can be done for early intervention. You make a call, in New York, I was really shocked. In New Jersey, I made a call, they were in my house within 2 weeks. They came in, they did an assessment of Samuel in-house, and immediately got a prescription, and all of those therapies were covered by the state up until he started pre-K3. So really try to get it if you can, if you are seeing something. And it does not have to be autism, right? My 3-year-old, who you all see, who makes the most noise around Yamida, he is a neurotypical child. He actually does not listen to little boys and his brother. He also had early intervention for no other reason than the fact that he had speech delay, also born out of the pandemic and being in a lot of isolation. So now he's in pre-K3, he's not autistic, but early intervention helped us as well with his speech development. So just, if you see anything in your child, autism or not, try to, take advantage of those services, especially free ones.
In addition to that, it is very good for parents to know the different stages of development from birth, from they start cooing, smiling, all the way up. So these are very important cues for parents to know. And we're all on social media, you can just Google Autism stage of development.
And I'll say also talk to your pediatrician, because I forgot. If I was a pediatrician and I'm here, if you don't, want to do the research or call, that's the first step, because your pediatrician can usually say, let's just look into that. Mine's looking a little more, I'm maybe didn't see, but it's okay to go in for what you need.
Just I think part of the initial question, correct me if I'm wrong, was kind of like, what is the avenue to diagnose?
Yes.
Okay. So your pediatrician may not be able to give you an assessment and diagnosis of autism. They may refer you, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think a developmental pediatrician or a neurologist is really who you want to see to assess if your child is on the spectrum or not.
And much like some of those other specialists that they were talking about, they're very, very difficult to get an appointment with. You all would be surprised. Children are on spectrum these days, so they're overwhelmed. Right here in New Jersey, I go to children's specialized hospital in Indiana for my son. They have, satellite spaces all over the state. But yeah, sometimes maybe 6 months to a year to get that appointment. It's really hard to get in, and if you get one, keep it. Like, shut everything else down and go to that appointment.
I also want to add, one of the challenges that many of my parents are facing is that when you get a referral, if you try to call the neurologist, you can't get them. Ask your pediatrician to make the appointment for you, because that seems to be the easiest route to get that appointment. So though you may get a ton of numbers, you're calling and to no avail, and I'm picking up, and this is what I'm getting every day that I go to the home speaking to parents. Parents have to be advocates for their children. You will have to, say to the pediatrician, I understand that I have to call these numbers, but is there any way that you could try to make that appointment for me? That would be the easiest route to go to therapy.
Any last questions or comments on anything you heard today or in the PowerPoint?
Oh, I know.
Yes, of course.
So this is for the sheriff, and we talk about the AAC device, right? And you know how, we use AAC device at home, and you pretty much press the button, and it's talk, and it'll say, I want cookie, or whatever that is, whatever the child's trying to communicate to you. How do you bring the AAC device into church? Because we personally don't bring it, because I don't want an outburst of, I want cookie in the middle of service. How do you bring it to church, or how do you channel communication at church without it if it's not written?
That is such a good question. So one of the things that I love to create for my parents, and it's okay, by the way. Like, I think sometimes in church, like, we're saying, oh, keep the kids sit. It's like, for me, I love this. Like, if they want to come up to the stage, I mean, as long as they're, like, not, you know, if they're being unsafe, that's fine. But I think we need to make it okay for children to be children in church. It's okay for them to be children. It's okay for them to, you know, clap, you know, to the songs and just be a child. But anyway, to answer your question, I usually like to create a low-tech version of the device so that the parents can carry with them. So for example, right, to speak in simple terms, if your child uses an iPad with the AAC software, what I will do is I will take screenshots of their pages and print it out and laminate it. So that way, even if you don't want to bring the actual physical device with you, then you can have your speech therapist say, I know a speech therapist who says that you can create a paper-based version of this for me. So that way you can actually bring the paper-based version, and if your child wants a cookie, they can literally just point and tell you that they want cookie, as opposed to allowing that external, you know, output constantly being heard in the service. Now, if you ask me, I would say, let them say it in the service. I love that. Because again, what we want is generalization. And what that basically means is that if my student can only communicate with me in my speech office, I am not doing a good job. They need to be able to take the skills that I am teaching them in my office to the classroom, home, church, ShopRite, Aldi, swimming, wherever they go. Now, obviously, it takes time. I tell my parents, just like if you want to learn a new language, that is literally what AAC is. And even all forms of communication, right? In all language, it takes time to learn a language, right? So give your child grace, give yourself grace. Because if it's taking a long time for your child to learn how to communicate with this external support, it's going to take time for you to also learn how to support your child. So give yourself grace. The fact that you are considering bringing it into the church, right, setting, it's amazing. And again, to answer your question, paper-based version, or you can even just create a simple communication board that you can actually bring with you. Okay, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, one last one. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Good.
sorry. Hello everyone. I was just gonna add to that, quickly that also with the devices, earpods now. So you can just connect one earpod to the ear connected to the device, and the child can continue to use their device without being disrupted. Use earbuds. Disrupted to the space. But I also want to say that as a person performer who work in a day-to-day population, so that's what students of all abilities, varying abilities. This conversation that's being had right now is a really, really important conversation because there are people that don't know. And I'm surprised as I have a friend who her son is autistic, and I can watch her TikTok page where she uses it to teach about autism in her child. To watch the commentary from adults, it's heartbreaking for people who don't know to see the things that they say about her son, and for her to then find the grace to respond in not in kind, but giving them knowledge. So I think this conversation is important, and it's important for us as we sit and learn to then now take what we've learned and adapt it to make sure that our families that are here feel welcome in the space and that we use it to become better aware and better and have a better environment so everyone feels anything within the space. So thank you.
Oh, yes, okay. Just one comment. I'm in the city. Children are 0 to 3 years old, 5 years old. And I noticed that it's very difficult for the parents to accept being when they're in school. I think you should have this chance and they will refuse it until the child's age of the early intervention or whatever. How can we educate that? What are we doing to try to get these children, especially our children, into these services? As you said, most of them services are free, but a lot of our children are getting because that maybe denial or knowledge.
Okay. Hearing that your child has a disability is not something you can ever unhear. It's terrifying. It's nobody's job to get that parent. Even if you say, I have family members, friends, most friends, I can tell. I'm there trying to force them. Instead, focus the conversation on the benefit the child will receive from the service. So, I see that the child is tippy-toe walking, I see the child is laughing, I see the child is smiling, but I see the child can't talk with their cousins or their friends. And I say, oh, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if you could talk with his cousins? Wouldn't speech therapy help right now? Oh, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we could take care of ourselves and go to the toilet and not have to wear a diaper because I've never seen the other children are kind of funny treated because they isn't ready. Wouldn't some behavioral therapy maybe help with that? How could we get that? And the diagnosis is then a byproduct, right? That diagnosis is the point of it. That's how I, in my life, that's how I deal with those sort of circumstances. When you are not the parent, when you're the outsider, and you don't have an emotional connection, but it's not the same, it can break your heart to see that the child, you know what the child is getting. But it's not your road to walk. So a little compassion and understanding, focusing on the benefit of what they could be getting out of this. That's all I.
Yeah, and I just said one thing for the folks from a parent point of view, this is very personal. It will not, hopefully no one else should have done that with this, but just, yes, I didn't have a hard time with the acceptance. I will say there are layers to that, because that's a whole different conversation. But I was having brought it up, and I know Sister was like, we can't talk about that. We put it in our presentation, but we won't have the time to go on and on. But for me, right, there were so many layers, right? So community, even outside of church, let's talk about immediate homes. I am Jamaican American, first generation born here. I am married to a Nigerian who immigrated here, has no immediate family in this country, mostly in the UK and back in Nigeria. And we started to open up and have this conversation. For my husband, special needs wasn't a hard label, it still isn't. Autism is, but that's for a number of reasons. For my parents, I saw the disconnect. I don't even discuss autism with my father. We just talk about him as he is, and we don't work there. With my mother, who has moved and lives in the home with us to help us care for these children, she still struggles. She'll say things like, so smart, how can you be autistic? I'm like, they're not one and the same. And she gets there, right? Like, they're in all the doctor's appointments with me. They're there. My grandparents live in Canarsie, both Jamaican. They're like starting to get it. But then I see things in my father, and I'm like, I didn't see this. You might have an intellectual child. And it shows up right in my child. But I'm like, in 1955, we weren't having that conversation in Jamaica, right? So I see a lot of things that were suppressed in the support that is from me. And then my in-laws we again don't talk about it because again it becomes something that like we're gonna pray it away or he's gonna get better. And I'm like, listen, so where I come to, and then we talk about the support that our fathers need because the fathers a lot of times they're going through so much. I've seen my husband go through so many layers, and now he has become in his immediate circle the person that all of his friends are coming to, and they're like, because we are so open about it. Because I've been like, listen, I'm going to talk about it in every space because this is who my child is. Now his friends are like, can we talk to you guys? We're seeing this and we're seeing that. So it's, you know, the layers of the acceptance and where parents are, it's really hard because I'm raising a little black boy. He's already got a million things thrown at him for nothing more than he's a black boy in America. And then I got to now raise him under the special needs diagnosis. I got to get him to be verbal and figure out. So that's why you have parents. And then it's like, who's going to take him to these therapists? I can't take off for that. I can't. Parents are going through their own, and we don't show up. We're broken. We have our own issues and trauma. So when we show up, there's so many things in us that haven't been healed, and now I've got to support this person, and I've got to support these other children that don't even have this. It pulls from us. It drains us. It can be depressing, isolating. So I just want all of you all to know that you're an SOB, but again, let me go back to my statement. I am ever grateful for just even having this conversation, hoping that all the other parents share that as well.
I just wanted to add one piece. I like to really put it on the doctors because I am so tired of hearing pediatricians missing a lot of these signs. And if you notice that you're taking your child to the pediatrician and your pediatrician is not asking you questions like, tell me about your child's day. Tell me what they're doing. When I go to my pediatrician, I'm a parent now, so I think I can speak to this, right? So my pediatrician sits there and she's like, all right, tell me what Chloe is doing. Tell me what Luca is doing. Did you notice that he's doing this? Did you notice that he's doing that? Did you notice? You get what I'm saying? It should be a back and forth conversation. That pediatric appointment should not be less than 5 minutes. So if your pediatrician is rushing your appointment in any way, shape, or form, you find a different pediatrician who's going to sit there and listen to exactly what your child is doing from beginning to end. So to your point, I'll ask more questions and I'll say, hey, how's the doctor's appointments going? Because that's another thing I find that in our community, I could speak to this because I'm Haitian and Caribbean. We don't go to the doctor. And sometimes we don't go to the doctor. And especially our men, right? We really want to make sure that they're actually following up with the appointments. So when you're taking your child to the doctor and they want to see you every 3 months or every 6 months or every however time, you go to that appointment. Those appointments are important. And again, emphasizing if they are rushing you in any way, you find another one or you make them stay and say, you know what, by the way, how long are our appointments supposed to be? Okay, because I don't know exactly what the time is, but I know that my pediatrician at least sits with us for 15 to 20 minutes, okay? And you ask all the questions, you tell them exactly what your child is doing, and so hopefully that opens up to the conversation if something is not being done, or maybe if there's a milestone that's not there, then maybe you can again have that conversation and they can give you some strategies.
I just have one more.
Short question. Okay, I'm gonna wrap us up.
One more question. So, we watch the room, a lot of them are non-verbal. And we send them to school with you professionals every day. How do we know that our kids are being taken care of, that they're okay, they're not getting harmed? Because we see stories on the news where, they are harming the kids. So how do we know from the professional standpoint that our kids are safe and being taken care of?
Okay, so you need to be in constant communication with the professionals in your school. Constant. There's no amount of communication with professionals in your school that is too much. The more you talk with them, the more you're going to learn. If your child cannot come home and tell you specifically through their language what is going on,
talking with the professionals will get you the answers that you're looking for. Reach out to the teacher, email the teacher, send the teacher a message, reach out to the case manager, talk to the speech language pathologist, talk to the occupational therapist. Have structured as well as unstructured just check-ins with them. Pay attention to your child. Pay attention to how they're reacting to going to school. If your child is standing at the door and putting their backpacks on Saturday and Sunday morning, they want to be there. Children generally want to be places where they are safe. Even if your child is nonverbal, I am a firm believer that they can read somebody and know if they're a good person or a bad person. And you as a parent, you listen to your gut instinct. I know that's not scientific advice, but it's practical. You might not know the science, you might not know about the data and the hierarchies and structures, blah, 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 blah. But you know how that person makes you feel.
Yes.
Trust it.
And to add to that, we are people of faith, and we know the Holy Spirit gives us discernment. And that's basically what she's talking to you about, right? So when you discern in your body, your gut, that maybe something isn't being done at school, or maybe there's a relationship between your child and their teacher that maybe is not working out, then you speak to the professionals, you go and meet with that principal. One last tip that I want to add is Google a parent-teacher communication form. And literally put it in your child's backpack and say, I want this form filled out if it's too much daily, weekly. Meaning that the teacher, the staff working with your child has to fill it out. So if you, a typical form might be like, maybe if your child has PE, or if your child has music, or if your child has English, all those, wonderful school subjects, right? You want to know what your child is learning about, maybe how they participated in each and every one of those areas. So that way it gives you a general idea of how your child is doing. So again, something practical, parent-teacher communication form, weekly, every Friday. I'm sure as an educator, you might look at the form and you're like, oh man, fill this out. But guess what? It's your right as a parent. And we have no choice but to fill it out, okay?
Okay, wait, one second. Just because I want to make sure that I respect everyone. I know there's an order and a seat. So I'm going to narrow this all down to one last minute and see if you saw you. I'm going to come right over here, Sister Crystal, and then I'm going to okay.
I don't have anyone here today that is a nutritionist, but I maybe someone else that can speak about how does diet compare.
Thank you, Kennard.
Can you say that louder? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you say it louder, please? I couldn't hear you. Please.
No. I know that there may not be someone on the panel that can speak directly to this, which is nutritionist, but how does diet play in the autism diagnosis? I mean, we all know just with general health that things like red dye, yellow dye, and artificial sweeteners and things like that are general in children, how that plays part in how does nutrition factor in when it comes to autism? If anyone knows. If not, I think nutrition is really important.
I really can't speak to that because I rely on the nutritionist in the dietary department and also asking the parents if their children have any allergies. And so, sorry, I cannot really speak to that.
All I can say is, from a parent point of view, not a nutritionist, maybe there is something, again, going back to the sensory, a lot of us know that autistic children will tend to eat the same things depending on what they eat, and getting them to try anything can be hard. For my child, it's based on texture, feeling. If it's too cold, too wet, too soft, he will not try it. It's a little too crunchy. We're excited because he's excited about fruits and vegetables often. So I'm like, at least he's eating that. But a lot of times for him, it's anything with peanut butter and corn. He'll eat that 5 days a weekend. So, you want them to have the best nutrition, but we just want them to eat also.
So I will say that under my field, we do work on feeding, for sure. And obviously with feeding, we work on more like the physical mechanics, right? Oral motor, like what's going on with their actual oral motor system when they're eating. So we don't necessarily work on diet too much. But to kind of answer it a little bit, I mean, if you think about how when we eat and how food makes us behave, we have to think about it the same way with our children, right? So I know that if I eat a lot of rice and chicken and, you know, us Caribbeans, our diet is very, very carb, salt, right, starch-based. We know that when we eat all those foods constantly, right, what that does to our diet, but what that does to our mood, right? All of a sudden, I wasn't tired, but now I'm super lethargic and I just want to kick back, right? So if you just in a general sense, just pay attention to what your child is eating and try to introduce foods that will actually promote energy and give them just a more healthier options. But I do understand that even with neurotypical children, it's hard to get them to eat their greens, let alone a child who may have autism or some type of related disability. But one last thing that I will say is that though I don't specialize in feeding, I know an amazing feeding specialist. So if you do want a consultation and you have any questions about your child's diet and their ability to use their actual oral motor system to eat, just let me know and I can, you know, obviously refer you that information, okay?
I wanted to get my input with non-verbal children, how I do agree with the behavior of therapy. It's exactly, it says you have to have discernment. You have to know your child. And when I say sacrifice, that's what I mean. I mean, get to know your child. Though your child's non-verbal, he does have a form of communication. So once you know your child, I firmly don't go with the professional, what the professional says, because people are people and parents have, adults have trauma. And if this adult harm your child, which is something that can happen, you can't rely on a truthful testimony. So you have to know your child, know what your child usually acts like, and if your child has changed. Because if anything changed, you have to go with your child said, you know, however he said it or she said it. And so staying with your child and know your child, that's like you spend time with your child. Your child has a pattern, no matter if you or else speak. You know, your child is authentically happy or authentically sad. So you have to find that out because, you know, in the world that we're in the world that we're going to, it's just becoming more degraded. You know, if you can find a person in church for the most part, you know, you can find a person in the world, but it's more likely to find them in church. So you can't believe that these physicians are all in church or all worship or spiritual. So you have to know your child, bottom line, is know your child's communication in order to be able to advocate for them.
Thank you.
I was gonna comment on the question about, you know, the aid. I would say as a practitioner, I tend to be more careful with parents who are very, very, very involved. And so if you have children who have special needs or they're on the spectrum, I would say get to know their needs. Get some type of ground rules with them. Make your point clear and make it straight that this is what I want. Like I have a parent say, listen, I know you're going to the daycare, but I need to know your times when you're going to see my child. And I'm like, oh, but I don't have time when I go to the daycare. I just go when the daycare is open. But she's like, no, I need to know what time you're going to see my grandbaby so that I don't, you know, take my grandbaby out of school and she misses her session. So for that reason, you need to let me know what time you are going to see my grandbaby. I don't care about all the kids you're going to see. I have to tell you, I don't play with that grandma at all. I prefer my specific time. That's the only child that I have that I sit for this daycare. I'm scared this time, this time, this time. And she wants videos of what I'm doing. She wants the report of what I'm doing every day. So every time I enter my notes on the system, I gotta put a screenshot. Ready over to grandma because I don't want grandma to be on my kids, right? If you are that type of parent, I'm telling you, your age won't play with you, they won't. Your age won't mess around, they won't be on the phone, being distracted and lying on their kids, and then getting your kids kicked out of school. I hear this all the time, my kids have been kicked out of school, they're in AA school, and they're being kicked out of school because they're lying. What was their aide doing? Right? Another thing that a lot of parents are looking for when they're sending out their children who are nonverbal, a lot of the daycares, they have cameras in their classroom. If you're that type of parent, request to, be able to see what's going on in the daycare 24/7. You have that right. It is your child, right? That's the only way you can, know what's happening to your children while you are not there physically with them. So don't be afraid to challenge the professionals. We are humans too, and we have to do what the parents say because we're working on your behalf. Basically, if you decide that you don't want to work with your child, I can work with your child. So I have to respect my parents, my grandma, my aunts, and whoever I work with.
And just to kind of like piggyback off of what you just said, as your child is aging out of early intervention and transitioning into preschool, usually the service coordinator will reach out to the district and send a referral. If you feel like your child has fine motor needs, gross motor needs, usually like a school district will only issue a social assessment with a speech assessment, especially children in sort of preschool. Advocate for your child. Request for a physical therapist to assess your child as well as an occupational therapist. That's very important. Yes, you'll have a case manager that advocates for your child, but if the school district sees that you are an active parent in that school community, like I said, they will make sure all I's are dotted and all T's are crossed. So it's very important as a parent with the child in the school setting, with an individualized education program, you have to be active. Show up to the parent-teacher conferences. Maybe the parent trainings that the school is doing. Make sure that you become a familiar face within that school community. It's very, very important. And usually, an individualized education program, which we call an IEP, it's annual, it's a fluid document, it can be changed at any time. Make sure you thoroughly understand the document and make sure the case manager thoroughly explains every section of that document to you. Make sure you understand the modifications, make sure you understand the goals and objectives, make sure you understand the services that the related service providers will be providing to your child. If you have any questions, ask them. And you don't have to only see the case manager during the annual meeting once a year. You can schedule a meeting with the child, so you see the entire team that's working with your child every month, if you want to, okay? And usually they'll give you something called a prize packet or it's prize in special education. It's an expensive meeting, but it's a good meeting to explain like your rights as a parent of a child with special needs. So share that.
Yeah. Okay, so in order to be a good moderator, I take you have to wrap up. I know that the questions from the congregation are very important. We're going to take this last one and we're going to respect all of you that if you have something, bring it to the team or give it to any of the special messengers or I'll point specifically Sister Gay, a comment, question, anything later, and we'll make sure to try to keep that going in a different form.
Hi, so I'll try to make it real quick. I have a very close girlfriend. Her mom told her when she was on the store, getting diagnosed. She was a little family, very good. She actually just took them to get diagnosed. So she's having a really hard time. And the reason why she actually decided to continue to study from school, was doing a lot of misbehavior, just like crazy things that I'm not really against. But in the structure of time, my question to you is, what can I do as a friend to meet with her because I see how withdrawn she is?
I'll let go on. You sure? I was just gonna say that's hard. That's really hard. One of the things that we didn't kind of really address is just the counseling piece, right? And so, maybe like in the future, like having like a counselor therapist, right? I think the best thing that you can do is, of course, be there for your friend. Be a soundboard to either listen, and if while you're listening, if you have something to say, you can be like, listen, do you want me to just listen? Or do you want me to actually answer this? Or, kind of partner with you and give you some advice. Definitely don't go back and be like, see, it's right. It's like, definitely don't do that, which of course is in like everybody's mind, and I'm sure it's in her mind too. But definitely let her know that I don't know what kind of school he's in, so to get back to like the logistic part, if that school isn't the best environment for him, that's also a conversation that she can have with her case manager, right? So I'm gonna assume that if he does have a diagnosis by now, then he has an IEP, he has a case manager, he has a team. So to go back to the team to say, you know what, this school already kicked my son out, we need to find another school. Or to, you know what I mean? Because my school is actually a specialized school. I probably didn't say that, but it's a specialized school for children with autism and related disabilities. So of course, there are schools where it's like there's the general education where all children go, right? But sometimes, depending on the child, they need a very specialized approach. So there's schools that's created, right? Organizations that have created schools where children can come to the school and really get all those services every single day. So I work with the BCBA every day, I work with OT, PT every day, and again, it's a very specialized approach. So maybe that's a conversation that you can have and be like, well, you know what? Have you considered if this is the right school? And then take it from there.
Thanks for that. I'll let you get sure.
I am. To her afterwards. Does everybody just know that there's another event, and I want to be mindful of that. And I guess Sister Gay's probably going to come up and give her own comments in a second, but I am so thankful for every single one of you, your expertise, your time, how you all planned for this, went through the questions, and all of the answers, and I'm sure there are more questions. I know sometimes we hold back. We're going to make space to hopefully receive emails or text messages or comments from everyone later. This is not the end, this is the beginning, and it has been a very great beginning to an ongoing conversation that we will continue to have here in the church around this. And so with that, I'm just going to ask everyone to give these ladies a round. Or if you want to do it down there, maybe to just close this out, and then we'll have a closing prayer.
Let's give the ladies a wonderful